Following two mass shootings over the weekend, conversations about red flag laws similar to the one passed in Colorado and universal background checks have made national headlines. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock, along with more than 200 other mayors, signed a letter asking the U.S. Senate to vote on the bills expanding background checks for gun sales. Patty, sadly, Colorado again becomes, if not an expert, at least a state, a community with a lot of perspective on these laws and this issue. Do you think what's happened here in regards to the legal situation will become broader conversation on the national level?
It's hard to imagine it can become any louder than it is right now, although we thought that after Sandy Hook, too. I think we need Wayne LaPierre to go into that Dallas mansion, if he gets it, for $6 million Dallas mansion, lock him in, take away his phone, take away his access to Wi-Fi, definitely any Twitter, and let Mitch McConnell figure out what he's going to do. I think it's going to be tough to call the Senate back into session if he can't work a deal out, but it seems to me at this point they could. We certainly know that there's a red flag language that people can agree on, thanks to David Kopel, who will expand on that. We know that background checks, we even have Trump saying that we will look at it. We might be able to come up with language for assault rifles and automatic weapons. I mean, certainly, David, again, somebody's got to be able to define that, even though people in the Senate thinks it's so hard. Those aren't the only answers. Mental health, just being aware. Look at what happened in Missouri yesterday, where they managed to stop what looked like a horrifying incident with a shooter. We've got to attack this from every angle, but the solution is not to ignore it, because clearly it's not going away.
David, I would piggyback on Patty's comments, noting that I don't think there's any one solution out there, whether you like it or hate it. A red flag law or mental health or anything is not going to solve all of it. But it feels that generally people want to see some sort of progress. Do you see something possible on the national level when it comes to either red flag bills or universal background checks?
Potentially. The challenge is between actual truly progressive things that will improve public safety while respecting civil and constitutional rights versus other stuff that is just, as is always the thing, the gun ban lobbies try to ram things through in an atmosphere of crisis and hope that people don't notice what's actually in the destructive bills they're promoting. I seriously doubt that Mayor Hancock, or most of these other 200 mayors who signed that letter, have ever read H.R. 8, the so-called Bloomberg background check bill. That is a bill that felonizes literally millions of people who'd never sell guns. It allows the government to impose unlimited taxes on the purchase of a gun, and it's a handgun ban for young adults. Now, you could be for or against those ideas, but to call that a background check bill is typical of the lies that the Bloomberg PR machine puts out for its useful idiots. Last week, I was in Washington, D.C., meeting with Senator Graham and Senator Blumenthal on their draft red flag bill. And we had a very good discussion. The bill cannot be introduced until the Senate returns on September 10th, as it normally will do, and should not certainly let Michael Bloomberg bully it into changing that. And I think it's going to be a very strong bill in terms of being helpful for public safety and being strong on due process, which the Colorado bill and many of the other state laws have fallen far short on.
Penn, these shootings were not just about guns. Clearly, there was a whole different tact here, especially when we look at El Paso. How do you see those ramifications moving forward?
They're huge. They're going to drive the conversation. And I get David's point, but part of the problem is with the influence that Wayne LaPierre has demonstrated he has with Donald Trump. And I understand waiting until after the August recess, but the problem Mitch McConnell has is the longer you wait to do something, the greater the impression you give folks that you really don't intend to do anything. And I think the general public is saying that's no longer acceptable. You've got not just what we do with guns and how people access them and use them in this community. You have Donald Trump, whose rhetoric has in some way, in the minds of many, I'm one of them, fueled some of the animus that some of these offenders have, and have articulated that that's why they're doing some of the things they do. Now, you can't legislate how people think and how they feel. I get that, but you can't legislate how they act and what they can do to get access to things like guns. So Mitch McConnell's in a trick bag. I mean, I'm glad David met with folks and he saw a bill that he thinks is very good, but they better put it on the table fast and quick. We've had 2 shootings. We've had the incidents where they stopped another situation. If more and more of these events occur before the Senate leisurely returns to Washington, D.C. to take some action, people aren't going to be very patient with them. We've got a nation that's angry now because the vast majority of people want to see some progress made on background checks and assault weapons and a host of other things. They better act quickly.
Lynn, it feels that the drive for some sort of action might also come from the fact that people can find a reason to not feel safe almost anywhere. A garlic festival, a Walmart, and it's not as if people were already feeling safe with a church or a school or anywhere else. But it's a deeper feeling. I was at a bluegrass and beer festival in the middle of Keystone, and there was part of me looking around the crowd, going, "Oh, geez, there's a lot of balconies here." I don't know if we can legislate anything that could stop that, but it feels it's going to drive some action. What do you think?
Well, I have gone to the Garlic Festival, by the way, just for the record, to full disclosure. The weird thing is, I mean, how many times you've read the phrase, that couldn't happen in a place like this? Well, it does happen in a place like this. It happens in very average, ordinary places. It's surprising, this is terrible to say, that it doesn't happen more in those kind of places. There's a lot of people. You don't necessarily have to go through security to get to things, that sort of thing. I don't think that they should go back before September 10th. I think I'd rather have something thoughtful than something fast. The fact that you're talking with people, David, means that at least people want to do it right. The biggest thing I took out of all this was my shock in hearing President Trump say we need more red flag laws, which, of course, didn't he say that? Am I?
Yeah, but he said that last year too.
Right, but that is such a phrase in this state where you're trying to recall a sheriff over it and you're trying to do all this. I'm like, okay, so Neville's, Dudley Brown, etc. Red flags, not necessarily bad. I think also overlooked was really that this shooting in El Paso, which I have relatives from that area, that has been a community of people just walking across the border for years, and this, we're going to go and get, Mexicans, and that it was just so horrifying. It was like a hunt.